that bitch. Jump in that. Jump in that fire.
Welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing the hidden role of ancestors in magic or whatever spiritual practice you may have. A lot of us have experienced, hearing the same song in our head over and over again, or having the same recurring dream, or even smelling a random smell in the house that we can't necessarily pinpoint where it's coming from. And a lot of times, yes, there's a logical reasoning behind it, but there's other times in which it's actually your ancestors trying to get contact with you. It just happens to be that you aren't receptive to understanding the line of communication. So before we even get into that, let's focus on why ancestors even why ancestors even matter in magic or in spirituality in general. Your ancestors matter because regardless of the tradition you're in, whether it's Vodou, Hoodoo, Santeria, or even you're just a regular person practicing spirituality, a lot of times they are your first, your first line of defense. They are the ones that whether or not you even give them an offering or have an altar set up for them, they're most likely going to be the ones to protect you. And a lot of people don't try to focus on building this strong foundation of working with their ancestors because they want to jump into high school level activities such as working with Loa, working with Orishas without starting in kindergarten first. Understanding how to work with your ancestors. That's your bloodline. That's a spirit that you are familiar with. So in the most likely instance in which you're going to mess up or do something wrong, you don't really have to worry about too much of a backlash because that spirit has an understanding of who you are. You already have a deep connection with that spirit. Not to say that it can't happen because it does depend on the ancestor, but you have a higher chance of an Orisha or Loa having some heavy retaliation against you when you do something wrong versus you're working with your grandma or your grandfather. So, or even your mom, whoever. So it's best to really try to work on that strong base, that strong foundation, such as your ancestors, because like I said, those are the ones that are going to be the first ones to pop up when you want some guidance, when you want some insight, some protection, whatever. Now, there are various ways in which your ancestors are going to try to communicate with you. It can be via dreams, synchronicities, smells, random objects. It can be all types of things. And the main thing you want to make sure you're not doing is having high expectations of how you want them to communicate with you or think they should communicate with you. See, many people get into this and they want their ancestors to appear right in front of them and start talking, or in their meditation they want to hear their voice or see them in a dream. And because their ancestors don't do that, they're missing the other ways in which they're actually trying to communicate with them. It isn't always going to be how you expect it to be. You might not be spiritually gifted enough to see your ancestor. You might not have clairvoyance. You might not have the gift of clairaudience to where you're going to hear your ancestor. So you can only work solely off of signs and omens that you see with your own two eyes. It all depends. See, when I was growing up and my aunt was training me how to, I guess, work the spirit, as they say, understand the spirits, she always told me, expect everything but expect nothing. When I heard that, I was like, what was I, like probably 13 or 14? I'm thinking, the fuck are you talking about? Like, I didn't really get it. It kind of made me a little aggravated because my mind is very logical. So I'm like, okay, you're telling me to expect everything but expect nothing. All right, what is that? What are you saying? But now I understand it. If you have such high expectations, you're going to miss the little things that's transpiring in your environment that's actually them trying to convey a message to you rather than it being, like I said, it being the way in which you would want it to be. So let's say, for example, synchronicities. A synchronicity can be something as simple as you hearing a song that one of your ancestors used to play a lot while they was living. And you hear it on a day that, how ironic, they actually died on that particular day. So let's say, for example, today you hear a song that your ancestor used to play when they was alive. You go and look at their obituary. Oh, how ironic. They died today. This was the day they passed. That can be them trying to get contact with you. That's happened to me before. Or even, let's say there was a time in which, this was a couple months ago, I wanted to know if a love combination I was testing out was a good combination. I asked my ancestors to give me some form of a sign that it was a valid combination. I go out to my car that same day, and right by my car, it's like a rubber band in the shape of a heart. And I'm like, okay, How ironic. So it's little things like that. It could have been that I went into meditation or sleep that night and they came to me and say, oh yeah, combination was great, it's perfect. But it's not always like that. Sometimes it could be something as simple as, like I said, you walk into your car and it's a random rubber band right next to your door and it's in the shape of a heart. That can be a sign or an omen that what you did was correct. Or you can throw some black magic out and you're wondering if it worked. You ask your ancestors, was the combination a good combination? Was the ritual done correctly? And now you step outside your door and you see like a dead bug right in front of your door. Nothing else. Your door is completely clean. It's a dead bug right outside your door. Not a dead bug. That's a bad example. But something of that nature. A dead something. Dead snake. Whatever. Perfect example, a dead snake. Now that's an omen of something you sent out was perfectly done, was done correctly. So it's little things like that, synchronicities, or signs and omens, or like I said, smells. You know, your grandfather used to smoke a lot. You're not a smoker, but your grandfather just passed a week or so ago, and all of a sudden you smell the cigarettes in the house. You don't smoke. What do you think that is? No, you don't have no neighbors that smoking, nothing like that. Okay, so what does that tell you? So a lot of times it's like that, and you have to be careful too, because sometimes it's not even necessary. It's a spiritual smell, I guess you can say. It's not actually everybody else can smell it. You're the only one that's smelling it. Sometimes it could be that everyone's smelling it, but sometimes it's just you. So you can walk to somebody else and be like, you don't smell the cigarette smoke? They're like, nah, but you smell it though, because the message is only for you. So it all depends. It varies, like I said, but it's one of those things. It's kind of like it's a training process. As time goes on, you'll understand what has meanings and what doesn't, and like I said, what's significant and what's not. One question I'm always asked is, how can you tell if it's actually your ancestors or if it's just random chance? It's just a coincidence. And my thing is usually, how often is it happening? Like how many times can a coincidence happen before you say, maybe this isn't a coincidence? So, for example, with my mom, we have one of our aunts in which every time her obituary just pops up, or we smell fried chicken in the house and nobody's cooking fried chicken, we know somebody in the family is potentially about to pass. And every time, it has never failed, in which my mom all of a sudden discovers her obituary somewhere just lying on the ground in the house, randomly popping up in the car, and a family member passes. Or we start smelling fried chicken, and a family member passes. So it's like things like that in which you say to yourself, all right, it's not random chance, because every time this happens, it is connected to something else transpiring without fail. So for us, that's our thing. My aunt's obituary pops up, everybody starts saying, oh shit, who's next? What the fuck's going on? But it be like that. So that's how I say you can tell whenever it's not just random chance. Just see how many times the same thing transpires and it has a meaning to it. So if you keep seeing a feather and it means you finna get some money or something, then maybe it just means that's how they communicate with you, through feathers. And every time you see it, that's what the reaction is, and it's not random chance. So it all depends on how often you see it as well, and that's how you can kind of determine if it's not just, sporadic and it actually has some type of weight to it. To conclude this video, once again, I want to say, if you're going to step into magic, step into serving, or whatever you want to do, whether it's just be a regular person who practices spirituality and you just want guidance and insight throughout your life, try your best to focus on your ancestors. Easiest spirits to get in contact with a lot of times, and the easiest spirits to work with a lot of times. Don't make things harder on yourself by trying to skip steps and deal with potential BS that might come along with you doing things inaccurately because of your ignorance or because of your lack of experience. Focus on your ancestors. I know you want to overlook them because you think they're weak, because they aren't from the pits of hell, or they're not demons, or whatever you might think. But a lot of times, your ancestors got that, how I put it, they got that sauce for you. They do. You never know which ancestor is really stronger than what you actually thought they were. And you won't know until you find out. So you don't really even have to always summon them. Sometimes they're already right there with you. It all depends. But that's all for this video. Like, share, and subscribe.